Welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast, made for women who want their healthiest years to be ahead of them, not behind them. Join your host, Courtney Townley, right now as she breaks down the fairy tale health story you have been chasing all of your life into sensible action steps and lasting change. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Grace and Grit podcast. This is your host, Courtney Townley. As always, I just want to start with a thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing this podcast in the large sea of podcasts that are out there. I hope you get a lot of value out of today's show. For those of you who this is not your first time listening into the show, if you are a frequent listener, I would just so appreciate it if you would take 2 seconds out of your day to head on over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review for the Grace and Grit podcast. And maybe even leave a few comments if you feel so inclined. The reason I constantly ask for that level of support is we can do all the advertising we want, and we definitely take our own measures to promote the podcast, of course, but nothing is as powerful as your recommendations and your reviews. Because the sea of podcasting is getting bigger by the day, and people do read reviews, and they do notice how many stars a podcast gets. And I don't love that we live in a world like that, but it is kind of the reality. And if I need to ask for reviews in order to get more listeners on this show, I am willing to do that because I believe in this show and the message behind it so much that I will keep asking. So if you would be willing, I would be immensely grateful. Now, we had an incredible month on the podcast last month. I hope you will agree if you listened in. I heard from many of you about how impactful our theme, modern day mental health, was. And I was really glad to get your private messages and your emails because for me too, I was incredibly impacted by last month's content. We had a lot of incredible guests on the show. We tackled modern day mental health from a lot of different angles. And going into the month of July, in a lot of ways, we are going to sort of extend our mental health theme, but it's going to be on a much lighter note. So I have decided to make the theme in the month of July, Best Summer Ever. And in order to live your best summer ever, you're going to have to think in a way, plan in a way, live in a way that allows you to create that, right? So it's definitely related to mindset. And gosh, is there anything better for your mental health than designing and living your best summer ever? So the episodes this month are going to be incredibly short and sweet and reminding you to commit to shaping and showing up for a summer that you can live in a way that you look back on with really fond memories and no regrets. And I want to tell you why I chose this theme. Last summer was probably one of the most difficult summers I've experienced in a really long time. And I was, in many ways, in hindsight, I'm glad it happened in that it allowed me to approach this summer very differently because I don't want to have a summer like I did last year. Last year, I had several people close to me pass away at the very beginning of the summer, which was unexpected. I committed to way too many work projects, which exhausted me and kind of ran me into the ground. I was going through a lot of personal challenges, and I really just didn't create any space in my life to enjoy my summer. Now, the very tail end of my summer, I did have a 2-week trip to Portugal. So it ended well, and I feel like I redeemed my summer in just those 2 weeks. But when I got on the plane to Portugal, I don't remember ever being that tired or beaten down or so ready to just head to a foreign country. And I don't like living in a way that I'm so desperate to get away. I'm sure many of you listening in can relate to that. So this summer, I vowed to make the summer very different. And I decided that if it was going to be different, I had to be very intentional about making it different. And I think maybe being a parent to a 9-year-old boy, I'm especially aware of how magical summer is and also of the passing of time. right? My boy is getting older every second, which drives me crazy and breaks my heart and amazes me at the same time. It's all of those things. But I want to make sure that I am making the most of the time that I get with this precious kid. So I have a 9-year-old boy in the house. I also have a puppy, which I think makes summer even more magical. And I live in a spectacular place. I live in the state of Montana, which we constantly joke that in Montana, we have 9 months of winter and 3 months of guests. And that's the joke because everybody wants to come to visit Montana in the 3 months of summer. So summer is amazing in Montana. If you've never been here, I definitely recommend that you put it on your bucket list. So for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you may remember reading a post that I made a couple weeks ago about renewing my vows to summer. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, you should. I post a lot of useful information over there. I really use social media. I try to help people, right? Not to, make people feel bad. Certainly, there's plenty of that on social media. But also, I just want to be useful. I want to be helpful. I want to put good work out into the world. So I do feel like I do that through my social media channels. But you can always follow me on Instagram at Grace Grit. So I want to read you this post about my vows to summer. This is what I said. I said, I will sleep under the stars as many nights as possible this summer. And as a side note, we bought an Airstream, 26-foot Airstream of 2 years ago for $2,500, if you can believe that. And I have the great fortune of being married to an incredible woodworker. So we have been slowly rehabbing this Airstream for 2 years. And our favorite thing to do is to take it in the middle of nowhere in Montana and open all the windows and sleep under the stars. It is incredible. So I will sleep under the stars as many nights as possible. I will say yes to every opportunity that comes my way to swim in the great outdoors, be it in a mountain lake, a river, or an ocean. And I will wear my swimsuit with pride, damn it. Or perhaps none at all, given the right occasion. Come on, skinny dipping. It's a good time. There will be many late night conversations with loved ones, most likely sitting around a campfire or in our backyard. We will speak imperfectly and we will be deeply honest. If I have to make a choice between spending time with my beautiful boy and his dog versus going to the gym, I'm going to choose the Ginger and the Dane every time. I will indulge in afternoon naps when I can. I will walk barefoot in the grass often and much. I will take extra sweet care of myself, giving myself permission to be lazy if I choose. I will frequent the farmer's market. I will dig my own hands in the dirt. I will stop to smell the roses, both literally and figuratively. I will not take these beautiful days in this beautiful place with these beautiful people for granted. Now, I read that to you because I want you to consider what vows you want to make to summer this year. What do you really want to make sure you do this summer? Because here's what I know for sure. September will be here before you know it. And unless you take some time now to pause and consider how you want to live your summer differently than you have in the past, you will live it the way you always have, right? Which might be too full of to-dos, with so much busyness and so much people-pleasing that you don't even recognize it's summer. And then you go into winter and you have regret and you're tired. Nobody wants to go into the fall tired. So I always like to remind myself that there's magic in the pause. Sometimes we just have to pause to make magic in our lives, to remember what we want, and to be intentional about the creation of that. And most of us are so busy, we never pause to consider how we want to live our summer or how we want to go through the holidays. Many of you who've done my holidays program, it's a free challenge I offer every year between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And one of the first exercises we do in that event is create our vision for what a happy and healthy holiday season means to us. Because we all know how most people roll through the holiday season. They roll into it exhausted and stressed out. And then, of course, they sacrifice sleep to make the holiday really special for everybody else. There's lots of sugar. There's lots of alcohol. We're living up to traditions that we don't even know why we're committed to anymore. So we're not really ever pausing to consider how we want to live the holiday season. And I think the summer is very much like that. So I want to challenge you here and now to imagine for a moment that you and I are meeting for coffee in mid-September. What will you be so excited to tell me about your summer? How will you feel? I know I'll be telling you that I laughed a lot this summer. I did not take things seriously. I explored, and I gave myself permission to go slow. I was fully present with my family. I took advantage of exploring the incredible place I call home. I'll also be telling you how restored I feel and how ready I am to lean into the challenges that will surely arise in the fall in my personal life and in my business. And I'm not saying that I won't have challenges come up in the summer. Of course I will. But the fall is typically a time where I can expect more challenge because there's more happening in our lives. So how do you want to feel this summer? What do you need to do more of to create that for yourself? And conversely, what do you need to do less of? What do you say no to? What do you need to say no to? Where do you need to trim the fat? What are the obligations or commitments you've made that just feel kind of blah to you? Pull out of those. I know we don't pull out of those things because we're so afraid of disappointing other people. But honestly, your job is to take care of your mind, body, and soul. That's your work. That's your responsibility. And how people respond to the choices you make in regards to your mind, body, and soul, that's their work, not yours. So what do you need to say no to? I know for me, I definitely don't commit to anything really outside of my household during the summer, other than business, other than kind of routine daily things within my household. I don't commit to a lot of obligations with, other families, other people's children. Because it just doesn't make me feel like I enjoy the summer as much. I also don't travel much in the summer because again, 9 months of winter, 3 months of summer, I want to be here when it's really spectacular. I recently surveyed my Women of Grace and Grit Facebook community, which you're welcome to be a member of if you want. It's a free group on Facebook, Women of Grace and Grit. I recently asked them, what do they want to do more of this summer? And wouldn't you know it, nobody said they wanted to be more productive. Nobody said they wanted to actually chase fitness goals or lose weight. Not saying that those things don't happen in the summer, but those were not the answers I got. People were not telling me they wanted to check off a laundry list of to-dos. You know what I heard? I heard that I want to rest. I want to give myself more attention. I want to kayak. I want to hike. I want to camp. I want to read more books. I want to garden. I want to make art. I want to spend time with my dog. So what is it that you want? And here's the next thing I want you to consider is what are the greatest obstacles outside of you that might prevent you from bringing that vision to life? Do you have a lot of obligations at work? Do you have a ton of, family coming to town? You have a lot of guests in your home this summer? Most likely you are going to have some obstacles. I also want you to consider what are the obstacles within you that are preventing you from bringing that vision to life? Because we can dream all day long about what we want. But of course, right, it's in the action where we really get hung up. And this sounds crazy, but I can hear women tell me that they want to hike and camp and read and garden and make art and do all these things, but then they fail to make the time. Or they make the time and then they fail to show up and grant themselves the grace of that time. Or they make the time, they show up to do the thing, and then they feel guilty and they block the happiness that is a direct result from doing those things. And I know this sounds crazy, but women do this a lot. We don't allow happiness to stick around for very long. Or we feel that it's, doing these things is too self-indulgent, that we should be focusing on other people all the time and making sure other people are having their best summer ever. So catch yourself. Catch yourself in how you are internally blocking yourself from creating the summer that you truly crave. I promise you the world will keep spinning if you allow yourself a little fun and restoration. I can't tell you what episode it was, but I know a while back, I think it was maybe a year ago, I did an entire episode on allowing happiness because I work with so many women, and this is a common thread I see in many women's lives, that they'll allow a little bit of happiness in when things are going well, but then they often will do something to sabotage that happiness or that pleasure or that joy. So pay attention. How could you love yourself into moving through those obstacles? Because we can't force our way through obstacles. That usually doesn't end well. We either end up exhausted or something ends up broken. But that's where a lot of people, they become so disciplined and they're going to make this happen, damn it. That is not the energy I want you to go into the summer with. I want you to ask yourself, how could I love myself into my best summer ever? And maybe loving yourself into that is giving yourself permission to back off a little, giving yourself permission to do more of the things that bring you joy, giving yourself permission to do less of what doesn't bring you joy. Here's another thing I know is if you do things differently this summer, most certainly discomfort will be a co-pilot. Allow the discomfort of doing things differently. Nothing tragic is going to happen. Lean into the discomfort. Keep doing the things you want to do for yourself, and eventually that discomfort will fade. And the last thing I want to say about this is when I work with clients around their health vision and helping them to set some health goals and how to attain those health goals, I usually have them create some kind of reminder about why they are investing in this work for themselves, why they want to reach that goal, why they want to attain that level of health. And then I ask them to visit that reminder daily, because if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And if you have an unclear vision, you're going to take unclear action. So once you have a vision for your summer, maybe you describe it in a paragraph or two in your journal or on your computer or put it on a Post-it note on the fridge. I don't know what you need to do, where you need to put it. You can figure that out. For those of you who are more artsy and craftsy people, maybe you want to create a vision board, something that's more visual for you to look at every day. Maybe you want to record yourself just kind of talking out on your iPhone what your best summer looks like. But this is not a one-time exercise. You create it, and then you revisit it daily or at least every other day to remind yourself what you wanted to gift yourself. I hope this was helpful. I hope somebody needed to hear this today. I feel like a lot of women, again, we're trying to make the world and the summer so spectacular for everyone else that we forget ourselves. And I think that a lot of people end up rolling into the fall, honestly feeling bowled over, or that they missed an opportunity. And you're at the front end of the summer. You have a great opportunity right now to be very intentional about how you live it. So don't miss it. Take advantage of this and take a few minutes out right now to answer those questions that I just asked you. All right, my friends, that's it. That's all I have for you today. I will be back next week with another short and sweet episode. And I hope you have a wonderful start to your summer. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Grace and Grit podcast. It is time to mend the fabric of the female health story. And it starts with you taking radical responsibility for your own self-care. You are worth the effort. And with a little grace and grit, anything is possible.